Everyone, welcome and find your seat. And don't forget to check in using the I'm Here website app.
Go ahead and start talking about how the session can be and get everything and people start.
All right, so we're going to get started with our next session, the exciting, innovative, and learning-filled Lightning Talks 2016 at ESIP Summer Meeting. Yes, and so, oh, this is great, interaction already. All right, so the idea was, maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe longer, maybe shorter, visionaries gathered to discuss what the Lightning Talks might look like. And as the churning of creative and scientific thought progressed, it was decided that they should have a how-to theme. Those of you who've attended our summer meetings in the past know that the summer meeting typically has kind of a more technical how-to, hands-on, workshop-y direction. And this was one way to keep that tradition, plus get some quick, just infused minutes of hands-on, here's some things to think about. So how this is going to work. We have 7 talks. There will be 4 talks first. Each presenter will present for we have a target time, I won't tell you what it is, but it's lightning fast. And then they're going to present, and then the next presenter will come, and in between, tap dancing or whatever, while we get transitioned. Then after those 4 talks, we will have 10 or so minutes, maybe more, maybe less, of Q&A for all those 4 presenters. So write your questions down. If they come up in the first few presentations, you'll have a chance to ask at that mid-break. After that break, then we will have 3 more talks, followed by another opportunity to ask those 3 presenters questions. And then after that, I believe the next agenda item will be lunch. So yeah, so hopefully you got some snacks, you got your caffeine. One thing before we get started too here is that this is a interactive, lighthearted, creative, and wanting to teach you type thing. So feel free to leverage the caffeine that you just consumed and be energetic and participate. These folks have practiced, rehearsed, they're bringing their A game, so please bring your A game too. And then one more thing, so prior to this presentation and its preparation, I polled the presenter group and asked them a question. So every presenter has answered this question, and I will reveal their answer in advance of their presentation. The question was, what is one important skill that every person should have? And you're going to get to hear that tidbit for every presenter. So for our first presentation is Shelley Stahl from AGU, and the important skill that every person should have is be able to communicate your thoughts and feelings, writing, music, storytelling, more cowbell. Here is Shelley Stahl.
So I'm going to tell you about my vacation from 1978. Has anyone taken a vacation in RV? Please, hands, lots of hands. Oh, yes, good. At that time, I had no idea what a hotel room was, not a clue. I was 11, and that was the RV. It's an F-350, open road, and we went around the United States. We went to 29, took 3 months. My dad took a sabbatical, you see. So what he was an educator, a higher ed educator. He used to be an earth science teacher. So now think about that for a minute. Just be ready for what my trip was about to be like. We hit 29 states. We had 1 broken toilet and 1 broken fridge. So I wanted to tell my friends about this. This was unique. No one does this. I'm not even sure I was even outside my home state. So I had a scrapbook, and at the very beginning of my scrapbook, you can see that I was capturing neat things, right? 2 different things. Objective or objects and charms. So I was super excited. So I lived in Pennsylvania, so we're coming down now on the East Coast. We hit things having to do with atomic and caves and rocks and stones and swamps. Right, Dad, remember Dad. So who's here from Energy? Anything? Yep, come on, I know you're here. Okay, got one. Oh, there we are. Okay, well, thanks for a great time. So I'm not even sure that museum is still there. Ruby Falls is a cave, Lookout Mountain, this was a bunch of rocks, Stone Mountain, more rocks. And then we hit the swamp. Let me tell you about the swamp. So we were walking from exhibit to exhibit, Okefenokee Swamp. And I'm in front of everyone because, of course, I'm the translator. And across the sidewalk was this, I don't know, it was like a huge, like a truck-sized black snake. It was so big. I'm like, oh, I'm so done. And I turned around and I said, Dad, hand me the keys to the RV. I'm going to read a book. And I didn't see the rest of the swamp. So that night, though, we went to St. Augustine, Florida. And this was the beginning of my sample collection. So you can see that I picked up a little bit of sand, and I'm fascinated. Sand is different on different beaches, who knew? So all the way around the United States, I'm picking up new sand samples, and you can see I'm identifying. I got a seashell, and it's pretty cool. And there were more. Whatever I had, plastic bags, Tupperware, that's what I was using. So we're coming across the bottom of the United States, and we hit Carlsbad Caverns, and I swear to you, I did count 1 million bats. That's right. I swear I did, and it was actually pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. International Space Hall of Fame, yeah, that was cool. I don't remember a thing about that building. What I remember is the dust storm that day. I had never seen that big a dust storm, and the sun went out, the tumbleweeds were going. Dad did get a picture of that. You can kind of see that in the bottom right, but that was freaky. So White Sand is the only page in the entire scrapbook that says I loved it. Who knew? This was another sand sample, and it was really terrific. My brother and I were there pretending that we're presenting on some island someplace, so that was cool. Well, I captured a lot of information in the scrapbook. You know, days that were not exciting, things I wanted to do on my honeymoon 20 years later. The day we covered the sewage, that was very interesting. Meals, dinners that were terrible, lunches that were terrible, and I wanted to also draw things that I saw accurately. You can tell, I know you can, that that's not Rainier. So remember Dad, our science teacher, he loved the radio telescopes. So in my scrapbook, it was a PS. We went to see the telescopes. And I'm a super speller, in case you can catch that. This was terrific. So you could tell how much my dad, how fun that each event, depending on the number of slides. So this one had like a whole cube, you know those cubes with the projector, whole cube of slides. Everything else was just a few each. This was a whole cube. This one also was a full cube. So you see my dad up on a mule. We're heading down the Grand Canyon. I went with him because I was old enough to do so. My brother was only 5, and the mule they assigned me to didn't like the other mule my dad got assigned to, so we had to be separate in the line, you know, like us. And I was miserable. This was just horrific for me. There's dust, I'm like, I'm so done. So another full cube of slides. Palomar Observatory, it was very beautiful up there. They actually did not have the telescope open, but that didn't stop Dad from taking lots of slides. Inside, there was just gobs of them. We had a great time. It was actually kind of cool to see all that. So obviously, I'm skipping places, but we're coming up over the top of the United States, heading back east to Pennsylvania. This is 1978. Close Encounters was out in 1977. So if I know, some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but the rest of you. So this is the coolest thing. I was very excited. So I couldn't wait to see it. There's my brother, who, by the way, is a geologist. So just in case you need a heads up on that. And this an insane doppelganger of Ethan Davis who's sitting over there. In case you want to know what my brother looks like, without Ethan. And there's no way where he was standing was safe, but nonetheless. So we're home again, and that's actually a postcard that was from the scrapbook. And just thank you to everyone here who's from or supports the National Park Service and the Bureau of Land Management. Otherwise, we would just not have had as great a time as we did. So I want to tell you now about the data management that took place during my trip. That's right, full segue. So we planned. I had a place to locate my book. It was over top the cat. Yes, that's where I lived as an 11-year-old. I loved it. I could close the curtains, mix my space, and that's where my scrapbook was. The practices, very meticulous and clear. You can see I made notations of everything. I drew pictures to help people understand. I made sure when important things happened, like the sewage was dumped. That's right. Quality checks. For me, it was vacation, so I wasn't quite sure what day it was. I had to go back and correct days. Actually, that happened a lot when I went back. Like, oh, May and June, so I flipped those months. We use rubber cement, always making sure you have enough of your materials with you, and accurately identifying each of my samples. So one of them was from the Pacific Coast. That was very accurate, don't you think? And one, I captured a seashell with the sand, and I identified that with my sample. And it's also important to identify when you have to adjust your journey, when you have to document that things have changed. Like in Las Vegas, in 110-degree temperature, when Dad was fixing the toilet, and we were in the McDonald's parking lot, and it was hot and sticky and gross. And 2 weeks it took to get the fridge apart. So a year later, after the sabbatical, so so there was a lot of cost to do the sabbatical. The IRS, they audited Dad's records. The IRS wanted proof of the mileage, proof of the camping sites. And the question is, did Dad write that down? No. But we have a data repository. Yes, we do. So, IRS, I have your data. Moral of the story, it's never too early to practice good data management skills and save the day. So, wouldn't every researcher want to be a superhero?
All right, thank you very much, Shelley. That's fantastic. And our next speaker is Skye Bristol from the USGS. And to the question, what important skills should every person have? And Skye says, everyone should be able to laugh out loud at themselves. That's great. All right, well, welcome on up, Skye, for your talk on Biogeographic Information System Experimentation in a New Way of Organizing and Publishing Scientific Finding.
Thank you. My colleagues from USGS will appreciate the fact that I had zipped on pant legs for So, the theme of these talks is supposed to be how to, and in typical ESIP fashion, that was about all the guidance we were given, plus quite a bit of cat herding to get us on time. It was 10 minutes, and then it was 9 minutes, and then it was 8 minutes. I wasn't supposed to say how long I'm supposed to be. So I'll try to get right to the point. One of my personal drivers is that the pace of scientific discovery really can and must dramatically accelerate if we're going to keep ahead of the impacts we as a species are having on the planet. So I'm going to talk about how we're building a cyber infrastructure to promote traceable, trustworthy science in pursuit of this goal. Let me start with why we're doing what we're doing. The USGS has no regulatory or law enforcement responsibility. We only do the science part. We use mapping and modeling, data collection techniques to characterize the Earth's ecosystems, investigate what we observe to better understand how those systems work, and share what we learn in ways that we hope will inform society's decisions about how to manage resources. And our particular group in USGS focuses on biogeography and informing decisions about managing for biodiversity. We have this unwritten motivator that we can't really say too loudly sometimes, but it's really that no species should be extinct with human ignorance. We don't have anything to do with species becoming extinct or not, but our role is to keep us from being ignorant about what's going on. We work to accomplish this by mapping and modeling species and habitats, delineating what areas are protected and how they are protected, characterizing the threats to habitats and groups of species, and then communicating what we find about conservation status and gaps and opportunities in conservation in ways that we hope will be understood and used. We're not the only ones doing this kind of work. Sometimes others produce more advanced products than we do. And there are many researchers in the USGS and beyond who are asking really interesting questions about population level effects from certain threats, or producing more precise and different kinds of models of species distribution. Part of what we do beyond our own suite of products is to synthesize those other methods into nationally consistent methods in some way. We've been doing this for quite a while, for quite a few years, and we have a suite of programs that deal with biogeography, with terrestrial aquatic and marine ecosystems. We have a solid track record of success in these areas with clear uses of our data and a respectable citation history. But we're now gearing up to do something a little bit new. We want to produce, in the pursuit of a national biodiversity assessment, something that's at the level of a highly influential scientific assessment that can inform major policy decisions. We don't have the budget for such a report that's been proven in some other domains. And we also need to produce information that transcends scale boundaries to inform high-level policy decisions, but also low-level planning decisions at different levels. And if we're to be successful in this, we need to go about it as a coalition of partners across agencies, NGOs, and others. So we have this grand vision, and we're getting a start on this, but we're focusing right now on getting our own house in order. To do that, we're taking some lessons from what Kurt Tilnes and some others pioneered with the Global Change Information System a number of years ago behind the third National Climate Assessment from 2014. We have the Biogeographic Information System, and we're building it on an existing infrastructure in USGS called ScienceBase. It's a research platform that I and others conceived and started building in USGS several years ago. I've now found myself in this different role where I get to exercise some ideas as a science-based user instead of as PI. So we're building the Biogeographic Information System using all the features of ScienceBase. We're going to publish on those later this year, but I want to give you a few highlights. Why I'm so excited about the possibilities of this, and why I think the ESIP community is a part of it, and you should care. What we're doing with the Biogeographic Information System is all about reproducibility, trustworthiness, and scientific acceleration. We're iteratively developing this, some of the more theoretical aspects of the system, by pursuing these very specific use cases to which we believe the concepts apply. One of the things that we're building is a new map that we're starting to call the National Biogeographic Map. We're working on the biological piece, essentially, of this foundational mapping for the critical zone that was envisioned for a particular mission area in USGS called Core Science Systems. We already have a functional national geologic map. The national map, capital T, capital N, capital N, provides high-quality topography, hydrography, and several other layers for the U.S. Our effort will bring everything that we know about the nation's biological resources in a complementary and ever-improving fashion. Here's a view of what the National Biogeographic Map is starting to look like. It's currently in beta, and we're working toward release in the next couple of months. It uses something we've called a bioscape to drive what data are available to put on the map. We're working with the OWS context idea from the OGC in that to encode the bioscape in terms of how these data services are on there, how they're organized in this particular context versus some other context. One of the interesting things and somewhat different things that we're doing here is thinking about a new way also of interacting with the information on the map. We adopted an idea from some colleagues at UW-Madison for an interactive approach. What we're working to do is bring users into the ecological context for their specific area of interest. If you're a county conservation planner, you need biogeographic information summarized to your county. But your county is part of one or more watersheds. Biodiversity in your county is impacted by things happening upstream, and the decisions you make are going to impact other jurisdictions downstream. We're working on methods to bring that dynamic into focus. We've just focused on a few things so far, kind of high-level ecosystems, but we built a technological and methodological framework to accommodate rapid exploration and better ways of communicating these dynamics. So we call the building blocks of this approach analysis packages and synthesis compositions. Analysis packages are scientific workflows that analyze data and produce some kind of output. Synthesis compositions are semantically configured groups of analysis packages brought together to tell a particular story. In this view, focused on the Central Great Plains that we've been looking at, we see a synthesis composition by the ecologically significant context we're presenting. We lay out a set of analysis packages that use that ecoregion as input to provide information about species and habitat protections, and one that examines here biological potential for fish species compared to the relative habitat degradation threat. The synthesis compositions and the analysis packages are all items in the Biogeographic Information System that are accessed dynamically over an API to drive a display like this to show where they came from, the responsible parties, and ultimately the actual scientific code that's used to conduct the analysis. So those same compositions and packages can be brought together into different representations for a different purpose, but drawn from the same research infrastructure. This is an example from a new report from the Multi-Agency National Fish Habitat Partnership that's in review now and will be released in August. In the 2015 Through a Fish's Eye report, it presents scientific findings, assessment results, methods, and other information. They're all drawn and the biographic information system. The organization of the report has forced us to confront these interesting challenges, like how each part of a major report like this needs to be structured and documented so that it can be completely self-sufficient when you find just that piece, but it can also be composed together into any specific representation, including pulling things offline into a legacy format like a PDF or print. Sorry, somebody's just calling me, I should have turned on my phone. So we're still a ways out from being where we really want to be with this. We have to adopt or build some more elegant solutions for things like how the semantics of these synthesis compositions really operate. What we're doing now is a little bit clunky. But we're starting to deliver working product from our nascent research infrastructure, and we have a team that's forming and realizing this really powerful vision. I believe that science as a whole needs research infrastructures like the biogeographic information system at various levels throughout our institutions. We need to develop new ways of thinking about science that is organized and packaged for multimodal communication that puts just the right information at the right time in the right package for someone to use in making an informed decision. That person needs to be able to trust the information because we've enabled them to quickly and seamlessly trace it back to its vetted and peer-reviewed roots. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. And may I invite Nancy Hobel-Heinrich right there. And Nancy's talk. Where did I see that data management training session again? Aha! It was at the ESIP DMT Clearinghouse. And before we jump in, what is one important skill every person should have? Nancy's answer, know how to dance for joy anytime, as if no one is looking.
More different from what Scott just did, which is great to have all these together. So I think probably everyone in this room knows the song, the Lennon song, Say You Want a Revolution? Well, you know, everybody wants to change the world. That's what we're talking about today, changing the world a little bit. I'd like to narrow it down a little bit though, and talk about changing the culture, changing the data culture, our data culture, by means of a clearinghouse. It's an idea, it's a very simple idea, but it's something that maybe we can do. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is culture? What do we mean by that? Well, it's a biological culture that might cure disease. It's a plant-based culture that grows a rose. It could be pots of oil or acrylic paint that turns into art that can change your walls, grace your walls. It can be a tea ceremony with fragrance and taste and a ritual, a sequence of behavior that's a beloved kind of ritual. But let's narrow that down a little bit in a second. It's also a common worldview. It's a way of understanding symbols that you can communicate with someone else who understands those symbols in that culture without using language tags, perhaps. It's also a dance. Can you see the dance theme here? It's a dance that everybody knows how to do it, when to do it, and why to do it. So in our world, our ESIP world, we're really talking about data for the most part. We care about data, we want to make data matter. So if we're talking about data here, the data culture here, one of the key aspects of it is stewardship. You can't really see the terms in that word necessarily, but some of the important things that are there are inspiration, responsibility, vision, strategy, leadership, being a superhero there as well, or in your own way. But it's also managing our common resources. So let's talk about the common resources that we have amongst us, and also the commons, extend that to the concept of the commons. The commons is a term that's been used historically for many years, probably started in Britain, where people had a land in common that different villages all shared, and anybody could go there and use it and to be in a safe way and a common way. It was a place where people met, a place where people could play, all owned it. There are other means other definitions of that. Since then, there's a concept in environmental world where the commons is something that everyone contributes to the the earth for all of us. In the digital world, the Digital Library of America defines the commons as shared resources in which each stakeholder has an equal representation. So when I think of the commons, I think this is a metaphor for the commons from my point of view. There's a tree with a huge trunk. All of those branches are supported by that trunk. So if we think of the branches as being knowledge or experiences that we share or shared practice, shared values, that's something that we all have in common. And what I suggest we can do is add to that commons and thereby make some cultural change in our data culture. So how do we do that? Here in our world, we coach. We coach early career professionals, early career data professionals. We are coached no matter where we are, with something to learn. We share concepts and skills and practices and tips and techniques that may be codified into lessons, educational resources, how-to guides that you share among your own environment or with others in either a learning environment or not. But all of those, you do that as a team with people who share those values and share that common understanding. So what I'm suggesting, the idea that I talked about earlier, is that we can add to that commons by submitting those codified practices, what we know and have learned, our experiences into a crowdsourced clearinghouse that can be supported by the entire group. So the clearinghouse is something that could be crowdsourced. It's a concept. You add one educational resource, if you think of it as one raindrop, it will sustain that tree we talked about, that common tree. But the more raindrops you have, not only would you sustain the tree, but you would also let it grow and build and be sustained. So the idea that we have, like a number of us have, a team of us have, is to build that kind of crowdsourced clearinghouse. For data, to start with earth science focus, earth and space science focus, but also then be able to submit key information about the resources that you have into that clearinghouse. It's something that has been, we started doing it through the auspices of the ESIP State Stewardship Committee in conjunction with the USGS Committee for Community for Data Integration and Data One and the ESIP Federation as well. The resources that would be in there, to start with, will be the ones that ESIP and the ESIP short course have, the Data One, data management courses we have, USGS has courses as well. All of those will be put into that clearinghouse with some of that key information we talked about. But there are lots of opportunities for others as well that may or may not necessarily be codified. So if you've got tips and techniques that you, as I said, you can share ways to use tools, visualization tools. It doesn't have to be perfect. They're just things that can be available. I suggest that by doing that, that's a way to add to the commons and thereby change the data culture. So if you want to know more about it, there's information about it on the wiki, on ESIP Commons, which you can't see, of course, but the slides are there. And come to the fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, so our next talk, before we go into our time of Q&A, is a talk by Chris Linus, supported also with Doug Newman. I know you guys work together on the content. And to our question on what is one important skill every person should have, Doug's answer, from the fog of war and 11 lessons from the life of Robert S. McNamara, the answer, empathize with your enemy. And Chris's follow-on answer, and also empathize with your colleagues and competitors. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks. Doug's much more broad-minded than I am about that kind of thing. So, by the way, I am Chris Linus. I'm not Doug Newman. I know some of you sometimes have some trouble telling us apart, so I just want to clear that up.
I'm Doug Newman. See?
Now, what we're going to talk about is relevancy 101. And this is basically how to relevant, I guess, is another way to do it if you've heard that now. So we'll start off by exactly what am I talking about when I say relevancy. So the first place I always go for something like this is, of course, Wikipedia. They have a nice succinct definition. It's how well a retrieved document or set of documents meets the information needed of the user. And I want to emphasize that part, the user part, because it was a little bit unexpected to me when I went to see that definition. But it turns out to be highly relevant for our case, and I'll get back to that towards the end. All right, so now let me give you an example of what I'm really talking about. So suppose I'm looking for some ozone data, in this case maybe from the ozone monitoring instrument. So I go to a search engine. By the way, the search engines here are anonymous, so to protect the innocent. So I go to a search engine, I type in this case, OMI ozone, and I get some results. And so the first result, okay, I've got some ozone. The second result, chromium monoxide. I mean, what am I going to do with that? I'm looking for ozone. That looks nothing like ozone. I can't even really tell why it matched. Is it because it's in the ozone monitoring instrument, or does it match the OMI instead of the ozone? Who knows? So why is this kind of relevancy problem important? Because you think, well, you could just manually inspect those. And here's why. So here's a search, a little bit broader search in a different search engine. I put in ozone, and the question is, what is wrong with this picture from a user standpoint? Well, what's wrong is 995 matching questions. So I'm not going to be able to go through those one by one. It would take me a week, maybe 2 weeks, who knows? So what we really like to do is send the answers back in an order in which the most relevant data sets are going to be at the top of the list. This is basically what Google and Bing are trying to do for you, as well as that one search in Amazon that you can never understand how it came to that relevancy search. The popularity, that's easy, the average customer rating, but who knows how the relevancy stuff gets there. So what I'm going to talk about is a number of heuristics, and heuristic is just a fancy name for rule of thumb. And perhaps the most important heuristic you might have gathered from my lead-in here is what I call the content heuristic, which in this case is got ozone. And here's an example of one of the data products that actually does have ozone, where I brought it up in a tool called Panoply to verify that in fact there is ozone in that data product. So that's the most important one. But now we get some more heuristics to also help us sort that 995 element list. And I put these into some groups. The first one is a group that I'm calling new and improved heuristics. So these are heuristics that kind of revolve around the idea that newer stuff is improved stuff. Very rarely, we hope, replace good old stuff with bad new stuff. And so in one of these cases, for instance, NASA has a habit of periodically reprocessing data through a mission for a number of reasons. We understand the instrument better, we've tweaked the algorithm to make it better, we've got a better handle on data quality, stuff like that. And so in this case, in fact, we've already started implementing this heuristic in the EOS disk search engine. In this case, we're putting version 4 above version 3 for this MLS ozone product. Because we reprocessed it, and we like to think we did that for a good reason, because it's an improved product. And therefore, we hope it's more relevant to you. We hope you want to use the more improved product. Now, it also turns out that there's not much point in reprocessing, in continuing to process with the inferior algorithm. So we just keep going in the forward stream with the newer algorithm. And for this reason, if you look at the most up-to-date data, the newer processing version data is going to have a longer record. In this case, it's still ongoing, whereas we stopped processing the other one as soon as we were sure that we had everything reprocessed. Now, there's another category of heuristics that I call region of interest overlap. There's two different kinds of region. In this case, one region is a region of time. It's a time range heuristic. And this is saying that the data sets that are covering our the user's full time range are better than those covering just part of it. So in this case, I put in maybe a 4.5-year range. The Tom's Earth probe, for instance, which was an ozone monitoring instrument on an Earth probe satellite that died in 2005, and so there's no more data after that. Whereas if I go with the ozone monitoring instrument, it goes all the way from 2005 through my entire period. And obviously the second category of region overlap is going to be the spatial heuristic. And so here I've got a case where I've got this search area, mid-Atlantic area, and I'm looking at a data set that's just covering North America. So there's a little bit of overlap that's going to come back in the search, but it should be at the top of the search when I can have something like this, where I've got a data set that covers my entire area. And so that leads me into some of the user-centric heuristics. Remember, I was going to come back to that point that the user is important here. In the previous ones, we were pretty much just looking at what was typed into the form versus the data sets we had to fill those search criteria. Now we're actually going to think a little bit more from the standpoint of the user. So we're actually using some of that empathy that we said was an important skill, whether it is our enemy or our colleague. And so the first one here, maybe the one that's the most common and at the same time most controversial, is the community usage heuristic. And here I'm going to tell you a little nano story. So I used to call it data popularity heuristic. And that didn't go over so well with some audiences. I think it gave off a kind of a Lindsay Lohan, Mean Girls vibe, results on Hughes films or something like that. And so recently I reached out and I said, oh, community usage, it means kind of the same thing, but it sounds much better from that standpoint since you're leveraging off the community. But the important thing here is what it then led me to. This made the step shorter to think of this as, well, maybe there's more than one community whose usage we can index. If we can figure out which community that user comes from, we can actually tailor this heuristic for that user's community. And that is something that I don't know that I would have thought of if I was still calling it the data popularity heuristic. So it's a little story about the power of words and framing. In this particular example, I've got two data sets. These are AIRS data sets, atmospheric infrared sounder, that are virtually identical in every respect, except that the first one is using infrared data only, infrared input, the second one is using infrared and microwave. And because of the higher information content, a lot more users in the community will use that second data set than the first data set. Now you get some experts that really want the first one for a specific reason, but those are the people that we don't really need to give as much help. There's the naive, the novice users to this data landscape. They're the ones that actually need a little bit more help in deciding on the relevancy for that. Second category in that user-centric is the usability heuristic. In this case, I'm putting up level 3 gridded data sets, which you can easily use and look at in the Panoply tool, point and click, versus using a level 2 swath, where very often you've got to read a fairly lengthy handbook just to geolocate the data. In this case, I get an 80 or 90 page handbook to geolocate ISO level 2 data, which can be quite a project. And then lastly, we've got user intent heuristics. So here's where we're trying to define what kind of user they are or what their intent is in doing the search, and then tailoring the relevancy of the data sets to that. So applications users like high spatial resolution, students, maybe it would be good to give them easier to use data like the level 3 data I showed you on the previous slide. Climate modelers, let's give them data on a climate model grid if we have it, instead of say a sinusoidal grid. Now there's one cautionary note here, is that this is very hard to figure out their intent. And on the flip side is if you do figure it out, it can be a little creepy. It's like, how did they know that about me? So if anybody's, if this has whetted your appetite for any more relevancy, we're going to be having some healthy debates in the search relevancy splinter this afternoon. So join our session on challenges and progress in search relevancy. Thank you.
And yeah, you're the last. And other presenters, do you mind coming back up to the stage? We're about to go into our brief time of questions and answers for the presenters. And this is not a break, so no one will leave unless it's an emergency. Because we'll have 3 other presentations after this. So, what? Oh, you're right, the next slide. Yes, so we have a transition slide here. Different, we had data management best practices, we learned about the biogeographic information system, we heard about the commons and invitation to have a place where we can keep the ESIP official artifacts and other practices, and relevancy, usability, heuristics, lots of good content. Questions on any of the topics? All right, we're back there. And then, and feel free to address to all or an individual. If you see a theme you want all to answer, but an individual as well. And then we'll just have to take turns sharing the mic here.
Hi, my name is Arun. This is the first time. Okay. So this is the first time I'm attending this meeting. It's really very, very interesting. I work in the solar energy industry, and we deal with big data. And I used to work in wind also. And our challenge is how to make use of this data which is available for free from NASA and other data providers. And this is a very important session, or however I think which is very relevant to what I do. Today we have a meeting between 2 and 3 on solar energy and also other renewable energies, where we will be talking about big data application in this industry, which is really growing. And I'm very interested in the last session, for example, where we were talking about OMI data search. I had the same experience. I had OMI, and maybe the pop-up is coming based on frequent users, and as you know, solar industry is a very small user community, and it's not very popular search that you can find, you know. So our interest is not in there now, because there are not so many people searching this data. So sometimes we give up, okay, we look for other data, I can't find it, forget about it. And then AOD data, I do search again, I don't find what I want, and then I give up. So we force this community together with this solar, wind, or other industries is really very important. And I think very big to grasp our problem and also try to engage in the discussions. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to comment that trajectory where you try the search and you maybe try a few things and then you give up. That's the one that really, makes us the most afraid that we're actually underestimating the problem. Because I think there are a lot of people that just don't get what they want, and we never know that they don't get what they want.
Yeah, that was a great question. And then how do you encourage them to keep trying or come back later when the data set is there? Right. Next question, yes.
Shelley, get up to the mic, come on.
Peter, I was only 11, just so you know.
You have to publicly offer your job, but so
wow.
let's see.
I'm pretty happy where I am, just so you know.
So I was impressed by the preservation.
Right.
Aspect of your scrapbook, which looked remarkably intact. I presume you didn't take those photos back in 1978. Took the images of the scrap from the scrapbook, right?
I took them a couple weeks ago.
Right. So
yeah.
Tell me about the chain of custody, the stewardship.
Let me do that. So the provenance.
The provenance, especially I'm interested if the IRS kept any of the components of the scrapbook as evidence.
Well, there was a transformation. So my mother took a legal, and I should have taken a picture of it because I literally do have everything. But she took a legal page and captured every single date from beginning to the end, where we were, mileage and everything. And that's what the IRS actually got. But oddly, she must have gotten it back because it was in my scrapbook. So I'm like, wow, yeah, the provenance. So there's been no change of hands. From its creation through full preservation. We've been fully funded for preservation. Thanks to mom and dad, and then my first job. It was really kind of interesting. I watched lots and lots of TED Talks because that's what Rebecca and Aaron said. And it's always like a personal story. I'm like, personal story. Ooh, right, IRS, right. Yeah, it was real. That really happened.
Just a comment, sounds like a good thing from the clearinghouse. That story, how you did it.
Oh, I get it. There's a video, right?
All right, I'm getting a hand from Emily and Chris. I believe you have a question.
Great talks, everybody. And here at ESIP, we tend to focus on technological solutions to these problems. I heard a really interesting talk from a computer scientist from Google talking about how they improve their search algorithms. This question is actually for all of you. And one of the things he pointed out, in addition to all their technical infrastructure that's highly robust and correction, failovers, and all that kind of stuff, they also employ hordes of people that in real time look at query results and then work to improve the query. So my question is, what about the human component in all this? How do we promote that? How do we develop that? And so on. Thanks.
And we're talking about it this afternoon. That's what I'm talking about.
Does anyone want to take a stab at the human component of that search and inclusion?
I'll just say real briefly from the work that we're doing with the biogeographic information system and the framework that what we try to do is get all the technical stuff kind of taken care of here pretty quickly so that we can enable not only our scientists who are doing biodiversity research, but many others to very quickly write small pieces of information, write small analytics with very short visualizations and keep putting them in the exact same frame. So if we can get that framework laid out, then we can enter into some rapid back and forth with our actual customers who we have connections with through state and local governments, through many of the stakeholder groups that we work with that test whether or not any of it actually works. And we're trying to put the policy stuff in place that will allow us from the USGS perspective to put out provisional software with some level of peer review and approval before it goes out, but not necessarily final product that can test whether or not what we're doing makes any sense. So we got to get very fast about trying things out, whether it's going to work.
So one thing that makes that I think of when you ask that question in terms of human interactions, in terms of the clearinghouse that I was talking about, one of the things we're struggling with right now is how to make these resources more available and have people find them. And we're using a metadata scheme that's more about education to some extent than evidence-based science. So part of the struggle is finding the ways to cross different disciplines in terms of metadata itself and whether the value of it is going to help us find. So the human interaction is going to be in the usability testing that we'll do with those schemes themselves, whether people can find them, and also in terms of the resources themselves, we hope at some point to put in some ways of evaluating and measuring the effectiveness of those. So that is a hugely important part of any kind of data or content that you got, whether it's the actual science or the teaching about it.
Specific to that particular case, we do have a relevancy working group that we're running in USDIS, which is the ones kind of driving the session this afternoon. And we've just started collecting data from our search engine and the interface as to what search terms went in and what they ultimately selected. And so what I see is us kind of crowdsourcing that within our little community to try to figure out, what were they thinking when they put those search terms in, and did it work for them? So we will have to put ourselves in the in the head, I guess, of those users. So I'd actually be more interested in finding out more about their specific techniques and how they do that.
Did you want to ask Tom? You don't have to, but it's over to you.
I'll go ahead and comment. Yeah, it's like Sue's saying, seeing into the future. How are people going to think about the data in 20, 50, 100 years compared to how they're going to think about it now? And then how do you make that relevant and store the data correctly so that it can be found? So that's a problem not only in science, but everywhere. So if we as scientists can solve that, ooh, yeah, that'd be great.
I think that's as much time as we have for questions. Yes, thank you very much. And you all know your faces now. So don't hesitate to find them, ask them other questions later on. And so we continue on with our next three presentations. And our next presenter here is Jason Gear. We welcome you to the stage. Jason, there he is, running. Walking quickly.
I got 8 minutes, so I'm going to talk quickly. I'm going to start right now.
Yeah, okay. He's going to start talking, so I'll answer his question. One important skill every person He said, meteorology and software engineering degrees, which is only partially in jest, because at the weather company and IBM, they're looking for people with that expertise. So there you go. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. So today I'd like to talk to you about big data and from a weather perspective, how we're enabling people to be safer and for businesses to make better decisions. I'm going to start with a quote from Mark Twain, who said, "Everyone's talking about the weather, but nobody does anything about it." Now, to his benefit, he never attended an ESIP conference where he would very quickly be proven wrong. And also, the weather company and IBM had not joined forces during his day. But I think there's something that we can learn from his quote. I'm going to walk through a few stories today about this. Let's start with the world we live in. There's 100 kilometers, 62 miles of atmosphere and opportunity for data. At the weather company, we generate 20 terabytes of data from our forecast every single day. We ingest over 100 terabytes of data from 800 sources. We deliver that data at the rate of 345,000 API calls every second. Where do we deliver that? To 2.2 billion locations around the world. So our accuracy and resolution of data has gotten better and better to where we're really solving the question that people have at the rate of 26 billion requests forecast data every day. So with more data, more accuracy, and more precision down to a user's lat long on their mobile device when they're asking for this information, let's look at how people may use this information to make decisions. Not so well. So this is a picture of Atlanta's Snowmageddon in January of 2014. Looking at the data, there was an 80% and greater accuracy and prediction of frozen precip. But people oftentimes don't make decisions unless they're 100% certain. And so 80% versus 100% meant that school administrators, business owners, Department of Transportation waited and waited until they saw snowfall, that 100% certainty, before everyone spilled onto the roadways. And because they waited and waited, they were literally frozen in their tracks. So what Twain may have been saying still holds true, that even though the data and the information is provided, maybe people not taking an action is what we need to really solve for. And so what we are working towards is an approach that first connects people with devices and data. We power over 2 billion devices around the world, so that when people need this forecast information, it's at their ready insistence. But the opportunity really lies in deriving insights. So helping people understand what that data means, so that they then can take action. And what we're calling this is a probability forecast platform. So to take this example and possibly relate it to many of you, how many of you that flew experienced turbulent or a flight delay in getting here? So I'll give you a little insight into how we work with airlines and how you actually helped others on your flight as well as flights after yours. So through data sharing, we ingest data from airplanes, we relay that to the ground crew who can determine the probability of a flight path that has less or no turbulence. So if you did experience some, know that there were corrective actions that were taken, and rest comfortably that people on other flights that may have been in that same flight plan were able to adjust so that they had a smooth flight. Now, if we look a little bit deeper into the use of probability, here we're comparing some 16 models or models for the distribution of snowfall in the forecast. With the first showing that there's no snow, the second most likely noting 10 inches. There's a 50% probability in this example of 4.5 inches and a 50.7 probability of at least 6 inches. And so with all of this information, an airline can help determine what the probability of an on-time arrival as well as the increments of possible delay for a flight. And all of this information powers a decision, a very important decision of how much fuel do we need on this flight to account for the probability of a potential delay. So as we look at what it takes to really pull all of the necessary information together for this type of decision, there's really three components: being the ability to have an accurate forecast that includes probabilities. The second is working with the organization to really understand what the impact is based on those probabilities. So in this example, taking the potential delay, the potential probability of weather parameters equates to potential flight delays. And then taking those flight delays into a cost loss theory that allows them to then make the most economical decision around how much fuel to provide. And the point I want to drive home or highlight here is decisions that are made without probability analytics will always result in suboptimal outcomes. And so if we look at using this paradigm in the aviation example, we've taken the parameters of wind speed and potential of thunderstorms and the cloud ceiling, that the business's airport delay model so that they can understand how to use those parameters and then make the final decision, which with an exclamation point, it is a very important decision for aviation operators to be able to make good decisions on fuel purchase. Now the world's a big place, 62 miles high of opportunity, and so whether it's aviation or energy decisions or insurance or individuals wanting to know how to plan their day or their weekend, I'm confident that the work that all of us are doing here today and enabling data to be shared, understanding of that data will enable them to take action and make smart decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. It is my great pleasure to announce our next group of speakers, Christine, Tripp, and Sudhir. And the answer to their question of what is one important skill every person should have, Christine says, learn to give the benefit of the doubt. Tripp says, spatial literacy. And Sudhir says, love the quirkiness of doing spatial science. So welcome, team.
All right. This is an interactive play. So, welcome potential graduate students. We are approaching the last stop on our campus tour here at Velociraptor University. It is a leading institution, as you know, for artificial intelligence and science communication. And we're about to visit the lab of Dr. Shrestha, who's doing his cutting-edge research in this area. Follow me. Knock, knock. Dr. Shrestha.
What is it?
It's Dr. White. I've got some potential grad students with me. We thought we'd stop by. Can we come in?
Oh, sure, come in.
All right, come on, y'all. All right, so what are you working on?
Well, I've been trying to work on some of the new stuff, but this time you came at the right time. I've been working on a robot, and I just transmitted a huge amount of sea surface temperature data to this robot. And its learning intelligence is programmed to continuously improve over time, and it actually becomes great. Would you like to see it in action?
You want to see this robot learn to communicate some science?
Yeah.
Yes, please show us, please show us.
All right, then let me present to you QuickBot Science Communicator. He's delicate, we just got it working ahead.
It's so real.
Well, Dr. White, it's nothing. Want you to learn to communicate this complicated data set. I have its graphic display output connected to the screen here, so we can see the process and learn. Tripod, show me the data.
Processing, showing data, showing data.
All right.
Well, what you see here is 5 has like millions of the measurements, and normally humans can't integrate in easy way. But the robot is learning.
Okay.
He's learning, even now, he's learning. Can you see him learning?
I can see.
All right. All right. Tripod, show me the data. With more context, show me the story around the data.
Processing, communicating data with context.
Dr. Shasta, this is the worst PowerPoint I've ever seen. The university logo is all over the place. The graphics are hard to read. You got animated.
Do not embarrass me in front of my maker.
Tripod, listen.
For real though, for real, this can't be the optimal way to communicate science.
Well, that's true, yes. The problem is the more complex than you think, you know. We have just programmed him to reject the PowerPoint as a presentation option. But somehow, Tripod's logic continuously overrides this statement as it reaches to the conclusion that humans should be destroyed.
What? You don't mean?
Yes, what you have witnessed is a real attempt to kill us. Death by PowerPoint. However, this action shows the level of creativity developing as the Tripod learns. Now watch the next iteration, and we all know, right? Each iteration gets better and better because he's learning, right? Tripod, kill the process means to kill us. Add more context and creativity, communicate the science.
Processing, communicating science.
Who would have guessed? A minute. Wow, Tripod, what is this?
It is intuitive. You try.
Come on, students, let's try. Do you mind if we give
Oh,
it a
yes,
go?
please.
All right. Okay, so the map here, and to the left is the context of the map, the story. And it looks like the folks who created this called out what was important that I should notice about the map. And I can click on the map and see the pixel value from the multidimensional data set. There's a time slider at the bottom to iterate over time. Or I can click down here and actually read through the website of the folks who created the data set. I can download the data set. Wow, Tripod, how did you know how to make this?
Key to storytelling around science is the ability to replicate science. I included and documented my process at the end of the story.
So you did. You made a story map for how to make a story map. All right, so it says how to make a story map. So you can go to storymaps.arcgis.com and read how to make a story map. And you'll log in with your free ArcGIS Online account. And then you can download and work with the application templates in the interface. Choose one, configure it, load up your videos, web content, photos, and you're off to the races. So Dr. Shasta, how did Tripod know how to do this?
Oh, you know, Dr. White, Tripod interfaces with the web resources, and it learns to mine the data. And it must have found the template story map templates, the free template that the ESIP puts out. I think so.
Okay. Wow. So we're learning about how to make a story map, where we can go to get more information on story maps. We're learning about how the artificial intelligence is learning. Dr. Shasta, do you think that Tripod can show us the future of science communication?
I hope you will do it. Show us the future.
My glasses! Oh, what have you... Oh, wow. Wow! touched my glasses, they became like the VR goggles that NavTech is going to show at Researchers Art tonight. So he must have found that Researchers Art schedule session and interface to create this next iteration. Wow. But it looks like he's short-circuited. So do you think you're going to be able to fix him by tonight, Dr. Shrestha?
I think so, but I think I will need a little bit more collaboration. Will you all come and help me to collaborate and fix this part?
Yeah!
What I'm going to do is to fix with the help of yours and maybe bring in to the research as that session in the evening. And come in and join us.
All right. All right. Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm voracious for more than excellence. Shall we go get some lunch, students?
Yes, me too.
But not really, because we have more talk. All right, let's go check out the cafeteria, our real last stop on the tour. Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right, thank you. So, in our next and final presentation by Aaron Fries, which is going to be looking at the use of Jupyter notebooks to bridge the gap between users and web services, and Aaron's answer to the question, what is one important skill everyone should have? And I think this is excellent and a great way to wrap it up. Everyone should be able to listen and consider others' perspectives. Thank you very much, Aaron.
So I'm not a computer scientist, I'm a geographer, but I do have some technical skills. I don't just speak science. Those technical skills allow me to do some development for the projects that I'm involved in. So when I'm developing or performing analyses, I use a lot of different programming packages or web services that help me out. And when these don't have good documentation, or in my case, I like use case examples, it can turn into a very frustrating day. And so there are a lot of data access and data and analysis technologies out there today. And use case examples or tutorials on how to use these things are very useful documents to learn how to use the technology and go forward with it. And so I currently work as a geographer for the land processes DAC. I am part of the software development team. You may be asking why a geographer on a software development team. Well, we think by integrating scientists into the development process that we are proactively trying to minimize the gap that can occur between scientists and developing technologies. So we're always keeping the scientist in mind, both in terms of software functionality and usability. So with that said, we're also developing these step-by-step tutorials on how to use our services. And we're creating those using Python and Jupyter notebooks. So Python, many of you are familiar with, it's a general use programming language. Jupyter, or well, Python is used in many aspects of our development. Jupyter is an interactive programming platform for things like Python or many other languages. Jupyter notebooks are the documents that you create in Jupyter, but they have many advantages over regular documents or scripts that allow them to be very useful as these tutorials. So what are these benefits? There's probably many more, but three of them are they take advantage of the markdown syntax. They're very good at reproducing analysis results, and they're shareable. So markdown is great. It's a very easy syntax to learn. It's an easy way to convert plain text into HTML-like documents without having to know HTML or CSS. What's this mean? It allows you to easily add context to your example and highlight ideas rather than just having comments in your code. From a user standpoint, you're able to execute the code like you normally would, but you have words there that give you an explanation as to why pieces of code are doing what it's doing. From a producer standpoint, you're creating the code regardless. You just need to embed between these little code blocks that have markdown applied to them, and you have some usable and nice, easy tutorials to give to your users. So notebooks are also excellent for recording and reproducing results. You can organize these in workflows or put your descriptions and notes in it, hand them off to people, and they can run them in their instance. These things are shareable as well, so you can put these out on a public Git repository like GitHub and allow people to go out there, download them, and put them into their Jupyter instance, fiddle around with them, and experiment and really learn how to use them. They're also very small, so you can email them. They're self-contained, so there's only one of them, so it's pretty easy to share that way as well. So one of the critical parts of creating useful notebooks is not just the code that you put in it, it's also the supporting things that you include. So we follow a pretty typical outline of how to do this. We give you some background context, some system specifications, then we give you kind of step-by-step narration with step-by-step code lines with expected outputs, so that you know what you're getting is what you should be getting. We share our stuff from our e-learning section from the LPDAC website. You have two options. You can see a static HTML document that you can actually run, but there's a link to our ECC Bitbucket location where you can actually download the notebooks and execute them from your Jupyter and experiment with them and really learn how to use them. So I got a couple slides because there's a lot of writing on them. And so there's not much out there right now, but we're continuing to add to them as we develop new tools and technologies. And we're kind of on the track continuing to use Jupyter, and that's kind of how we're using Jupyter to bridge that gap between our users and the technology.
I'd like to ask the other presenters, Jason, Tripp, Sudhir, to the stage for our Q&A. And one thing to know about Aaron's talk, he's very, look at his questioning look. He doesn't know I'm going to call him out here. His was the only talk with auto-advancing slides. And look at, did you guys even notice? He was so smooth. So he actually followed the real lightning talk, auto-advance. And you all know how hard that is to do if you've ever done one of those, so shout out to that. All right, so for questions, and Emily's got the roaming mic. Brian Wee.
Brian Wee, and this question is for Jason. So given that there is a cost to producing better forecasts with tighter uncertainties so that your customers can benefit from that, those forecasts with really low uncertainties, what are your heuristics as business? What are your heuristics as the weather company for what you should be investing in terms of data informatics so that you guys minimize your costs but give the most benefit of good forecasts with low uncertainties to your customers? So I'd like to get some of your thoughts about investments and how do you justify investments? Like, should you guys invest in better search relevancy algorithms, or should you guys invest in PCs which crunch numbers faster? So what are some of your thoughts about that?
Great question. I think it would take quite a long session to cover everything that we're looking to do and what we are doing. There's a few aspects. I covered both the individual citizen and safety. So there's a charge that we have to enable better decisions by citizens around the world that doesn't necessarily have the same basis for the decision around working with our business clients. Overall, our investment is heavily in the cloud, and so while we do have 345,000 API calls, the reason that we're able to operate at the scale that we are is in part because of our early investment in the cloud and our continuance to move all our solutions But there's so many different aspects of what we're trying to solve for that it's difficult to wholly say where we are investing or really investing in a lot of ways, both in research and in how we deliver products.
I see a question, Mr. Wolf.
So this is a similar question. We talked a lot about whether decision-making processes. We thought, even thinking about longer-term decisions related to threats, climate as opposed to weather. Or can you use the same approaches?
Yeah, so acting with urgency sometimes means that we're acting in urgency now for things to come. And so look at a specific example of what does a seasonal forecast look like, and how do individual countries become smarter cities and employ planning and everything down from beginning to do smart construction of things and communicating between hospitals and Department of Transportation so that when an event occurs, that there's a known plan in place. We are actively engaged really with an IBM counterpart in helping communities become smarter in a holistic way so that we're not just addressing something after the fact, but we're really, I look forward to the day when there are many more stories around, well, this is what it could have been like, but it wasn't because we planned in advance. So we are actively getting more about some of the smarter cities work that we're doing around the world. Thank you.
I think we have time for another question. Yep, any other question? Oh, Peter Fox.
Trying not to ask any serious questions. How important is product placement in lightning talks? I'm curious.
Maybe that's a question for each panelist. Seriously, yeah. You still have your notes on.
Yeah. From the Esri perspective, I will say that product placement is important, and it's important to choose a product that matches your internet speed capabilities during present. Because otherwise, you might have to act to that.
I didn't really think about that when I was making my slides. I guess, that's just what we were, that's what we developed in, it's Python. Jupyter is just something that is, was initially developed, I guess, with Python in mind. So, it's a natural extension to our Python activities and Markdown, or the ability to use Markdown and to give people an idea on how to use our tools. Jupyter notebooks are just a great medium for that.
I'll share it anyway. So just to go back, we call it like a SciComm, what we showed, but like on the product side, a little bit on the we try to show the product placement side. I think any product that as a history we put in, there's more like user friendly and more data driven story we're trying to tell. So I think just to shout out, just check it out. Whoever hasn't seen the story maps, just give it a try and move around this week. We'll be happy to take some more on that.
Jason, did you want to speak?
I'm glad that everyone does that because I'm taking notes voraciously to really understand how different groups are using things. And I think that's a lot of what we do in this capacity is visualizing and talking about the solutions that work for us so that we can understand when we look at the blue sky, we have some context as to what we're able to do through the eyes of others.
My answer is just that it's always a fine line what you are thinking about conveying for the community and what could be helpful, and trying not to be, salesy. So how to be helpful without being, while still being able to respect the right to listen and to share. That's my answer. I think we're about to go to lunch, but first I'm going to hand the mic over to Erin, and thank you very much. Thank you to all the presenters.
What an amazing set of talks. I mean, this is probably the most fun plenary we've ever had. So maybe let's give one more round of applause to all the speakers. And thanks to Emily and Christine for moderating these two sessions. But I want to give a big shout out to Annie Burgess, because Annie herded all the cats, made sure that the talks were practiced and that the session came together like it did, and it was just an amazing session. So thank you, Annie. So we have one other little twist. I think most of you know that we were giving the teacher workshop teachers drones yesterday. And they learned to fly, and there was only one chandelier incident. I won't tell which one it was. But we had one extra drone. And so we were thinking that we would raffle it off tomorrow night at the Full Steam Funding Friday preparation hangout session. And to enter, you need to tell a highlight of ESIP, so far. So if you're interested in the drone, show up tomorrow night at Full Steam, and 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. So with that, thank you all so much for your attention, and lunch is right next door. Thanks, guys.